Hi everyone, what's up? AB School, this is your boy Abbas. Welcome to the family. Welcome to AB React. Guys, I've been checking out another interesting and amazing video of Douglas Murray. And today I'll be checking out a video he did titled Douglas Murray Shuts Up Multiple Muslims in a Heated Debate. Okay guys, if you know you're ready to see this one, do well to hit your like button, join the family, join AB React by clicking on the subscribe button and then on the notification bell so you don't miss out with our video. We have recommendations, suggestion, guys. Always do well to leave already in the comment section. Alright, AB Squad, in 3, 2, 1, let's do this, guys.
And if there were one thing I would wish Muslims in Europe could learn today, as fast as possible, it would be this: that you have no right in this society not to be offended. You have no right to say that because you don't like something you can commit violence, or you would like something to be stopped or censored. You have no right to have more hate laws or hate crime laws or hate speech laws just to defend Islam. You have to realize, the Muslims of Europe have to realize, that a society in which even your deepest feelings can be trodden upon is the only society worth living in.
How often do you see a man as fearless as Douglas Murray? In today's video, the Enigma finds himself in hostile territory, called to defend the accusation that Europe has failed its Muslims, against Tariq Ramadan, in a studio where Muslims were in the majority. Watch this.
I'd argue that Europe has done not too badly, considering the circumstances. In the middle of the last century, there was an almost negligible Muslim presence in Europe. At the turn of the 21st, in Western Europe alone, there were 15 to 17 million Muslims. That's a very fast migration, ladies and gentlemen, one of the fastest in human history. And no society would find it easy to deal with that kind of migration. As it happens, European societies, Western European societies have, I think, dealt with this much better than some would.
Indeed, Europe should be commended, rather than criticised, for how we've tolerated this upsurge of Muslim refugees into our countries. And if this continues, we're screwed. The fact is, many countries that accept these immigrants have suffered wave after wave of crimes and violence. In Scandinavian countries, rape has soared with over 90% down to Muslims. But that's a discussion for another day.
Certainly, Muslims coming to live in Britain and in Western Europe enjoy more rights and better rights, among them freedom of worship, than they do in any Islamic country in the earth here today. We do have a problem. We have a problem when the failures of Islam throughout the world, the failures of all Islamic societies, come here into Britain. Their intolerance of freedom of conscience, their intolerance of apostates, their intolerance of freedom of expression and freedom of speech, their intolerance of minorities, other religious minorities, sexual minorities, their intolerance of gays, their dislike and distrust of half of the population, women, and many, many other things.
The list goes on and on. When we allow millions of so-called refugees and immigrants into our countries, with their backward, regressive culture of extreme chauvinism, the harm that comes out of it far outweighs the good. Now think about this. If they were truly fleeing war and hunger, as most of them claim, why don't we see women, babies, children, and old people? Instead, the vast majority of these so-called refugees are fit young men. Some even use their iPhones to take pictures of themselves arriving. What nonsense!
And the call, what's more, for a parallel legal system within Britain and European societies. This is monstrous. No other group behaves like this, asks for parallel laws. This is a fundamental problem, and it's one we're going to have to deal with. It's a problem between a society, Western Europe, that believes that laws are based on reason, and Islam that believes that they are based on revelation. Between these two ideas, I'm not sure there is very much compromise for Europe. It is not Europe that has let down its Muslims, but the Muslims of Europe that have let down Europe.
That is well said by Douglas. It's the Muslims of Europe that have failed us and not the other way around. Islam is a religion that does...
This is very true, guys. Like, I think what Douglas is actually saying is the real truth, in the sense that, I've seen this, this Islamic, people I mean, like community having that much freedom. Like there are some things they actually go to countries, and then they do, but you can't do that in Islamic countries. I mean, like they have the freedom of doing a lot of things. And from what you just say, maybe you don't like something, you don't want to do that thing, and you're creating violence for it, which is not supposed to be true. So I think they have to really work on that. Yes.
Individual freedom and creativity. It's a religion whose inherent element is conflict. It doesn't allow human development because the afterlife is more important than the earthly life. And as Douglas said, the fundamental problem is that whereas the West believes that laws are based on reason, Islam believes they are based on revelation.
This is not solely something which we have to say we can never reconcile. Of course we can reconcile this, but we need to be honest about it. We need to be frank about it, and we cannot avoid things just because they are unpleasant.
Now, that's a powerful statement by Douglas. But pay attention to what he says next.
And if there were one thing I would wish Muslims in Europe could learn today, as fast as possible, it would be this: that you have no right in this society not to be offended. You have no right to say that because you don't like something you can commit violence, or you would like something to be stopped or censored. You have no right to have more hate laws or hate crime laws or hate speech laws just to defend Islam. You have to realize, the Muslims of Europe have to realize, that a society in which even your deepest feelings can be trodden upon is the only society worth living in.
Another powerful statement by Douglas. Without someone having the right to disagree with or offend you, freedom of expression dies. No one should have a right to limit another's speech and expression just because it hurts their feelings.
That is very true, guys. No one has a right. I think most times they actually make it look like it's against their law, it's against the law or something. Like to really understand or to really see a little bit about this is that sometimes they actually act based on revelation, like what is written, not what they see, or not. They don't act based on the law. They act based on revelation of maybe that Islamic or Quran or something. Because I don't see a reason why we deprive other people of the freedom of expression, freedom of speech, and then because you don't like something, you are discomforting someone else, which is not supposed to be true.
Feelings about their religion. That said, let's hear what Tariq Ramadan, on the other hand, has to say about this.
Let me start by saying that we are living in a difficult situation. If you listen to what is said in the European countries, the perception is very bad. 75%, for example, French people are associating Islam with violence. The perception is that Islam is a problem and that Muslims are creating problems. They are not really perceived at home in Europe. Every single European society has its own debates, its own controversies around the Muslim presence.
Tariq goes on to say that one fundamental issue today is that Muslims are not seen as European citizens.
We have millions of Muslims that are already Europeans, and this is the situation when we speak about Turkey, for example. It's as if we are speaking about people who are coming from outside, not acknowledging the fact that we already have Europeans that are Muslims in our country. Not only this, on the geographical dimension, it's as if when we speak about Europe, we speak about Western Europe. Eastern Europe is not there. The Muslims who are being Europeans for generations and centuries are not perceived as Europeans. The Bosnian people are not Europeans. It's as if because they are Muslims, they are less Europeans.
I couldn't disagree more with Mr. Tariq. It's bogus to claim that we do not see Muslims born in Europe as Europeans. But then, the main issue is, how do we get these people and the ones flooding into Europe to respect European values? Granted, European values are not exactly a specific set of values that are uniformly accepted in all countries of Europe. But then again, Muslims are more likely to fail at integrating and assimilating into European societies than anybody else. Now, let's watch how Douglas responded.
Tariq says that Europeans associate Islam with violence. There is some truth in that. There is also a very obvious reason for that, which is that Islam is associated with violence. It was not Buddhists who flew planes into the Twin Towers. It was not Hindus or Jews that blew up the London Underground and buses a few years ago. And that simple fact has to be acknowledged if you're even going to start a dialogue. Now, what is happening, ladies and gentlemen, it's not a pantomime.
The audience, stirred by Douglas's brutal facts, came bearing their fangs at him. First was Raza Nadim.
You talked about how Europe has dealt with this problem, and what you basically have alluded to in the 6 minutes that you had are that Muslims are a problem. And you're from the organisation called the Centre for Social Cohesion, and it's worrying that to have you talk about these things in this manner. What you are basically alluding to is that Muslims are external to Europe, and it's worrying that you see it that way, because then that means there is no chance of there being any solution to any problem, or Muslims being seen as a part of Europe and being seen as European citizens. Thank you.
Next, another man got up from the audience and said,
I just want to pick up something that Douglas Murray said. I'd like to ask you, when you talk about the Muslims that are the problem, which Muslims are you talking about? Because you keep slipping in your language to focus on the radicals, the extremists.
Right.
Maybe that's because that's what you're interested in. But there's another whole set of Muslims out there who are not like that.
Next, a woman from the audience told him not to speak for Muslim women.
I just want to make a quick comment to the throwaway comments made by Douglas Murray about Muslim women and Islam and its way it treats women. And I think that Muslim women are quite capable of speaking for themselves. And I think the sort of myths people like you put in the public arena, and I've heard other similar arguments from BNP and all that kind of stuff, they think it justifies their argument by saying, well, Islam treats 50% of its population.
One other thing is that the Muslims don't actually respect the law or assimilate the European laws, and which is very bad. And then most of them are actually seeing it as if it's like a hatred or something, and then making it look like they are not, valued or something. There's how you actually go to a particular place, and then we expect a lot from you, not you coming to bring issues. You understand? Like, it's not all about making issues of violence in places. And I think Douglas is always capable, and is always so tactical, knowing when and what to say.
In a really derogatory and whatever way that you like to explain it.
Next, a young lady blames Douglas for what's happening in Europe.
I'm a British female. I love this country and I give this country. Now you're calling me a problem. I don't think I am. I think you are. Second point is, as a Muslim female, okay, my parents might not let me go somewhere late at night because people are racist to me. They tell me to go back home and they hurt me. I got hit by 2 white guys and they laughed at me because I'm a scoffy, okay?
And here comes Douglas's epic response.
Let's just be absolutely clear, this is an audience. Prejudice undoubtedly exists in this society. It exists across racial groups, including from minorities to other minorities, after all, which is one of the things we see increasingly in Britain these days.
That's a solid point from Douglas.
And it is also the case that people, in particularly famously lower socioeconomic groups, are likely to feel hatred for other groups. That is one of the things that has to be tackled, and everyone, I think, in this hall, I'm sure, we're in agreement that that should be tackled. But do not mix up somebody, a thug, a racist, and so on, attacking somebody in a street with the right of Fleming and me to say what we see in the Quran, what we think of Muhammad, and maybe even asserting our right to say so.
Okay, all right,
Now, the same lady goes on to ask Douglas that if he had a son or daughter who wanted to convert to Islam, would he have a problem with that?
hypothetically speaking, Douglas Murray, what would you say to that lady?
No, of course it wouldn't bother me. I mean, I would hope that if somebody has access... Look, what Fleming and I are arguing for is that people have the right to access all of the kind of opinions, all of the knowledge that they can. That means, among other things, having, for instance, access to all of the criticism that should be written of the Quran and of Islam. And if they weigh up after knowing all of these things and having access to all of them that they would like to become Muslim, I don't have a problem with that.
Now, Douglas's response clearly shows that he respects an individual's freedom of choice. Or, in this case, freedom of religion. Now, imagine how an average Muslim parent who feels about their child wants to convert to another religion. Okay, stop imagining. I'll tell you. A famous Islamic preacher, Dr. Zakir Naik, explains that a Muslim leaving Islam is tantamount to treason. He goes on to say that every country has treason laws. and traitors are punished or executed. This is because...
And if you just take a moment to look into the Quran, you'll see the Quran gave women rights long before women in Europe started burning bras for their own rights. And you'll also see that actually in the Quran it encourages women to seek education, it protects us from violence, and it actually gives us rights in marriage. So you're very wrong.
Now, watch as Douglas gives her a good lecture on history, followed by a truth that stunned the audience.
The first thing is, yes, in 7th century Arabia, some of this was progressive. In 21st century Britain, it is not. And you have to make that fundamental admission that the Quran is not a document for women's rights in Europe in 2010. It is not. Secondly, why is it that only Islamic societies and mosques in this country are places which teach and preach hatred of other minorities every single week in this country?
You heard that right.
You, I hope, would agree with me that any minority that engaged in such hatred and bigotry should be criticized.
Let's just ignore the booze for a second. But really, Muslims should stop getting offended when Islam is criticized. Their religion is stuck in the 7th century, with its laws punishing people for adultery, blasphemy, apostasy, and homosexuality. Coming to what Douglas said a few moments ago, the fact remains that the Quran explicitly gives instructions to kill non-believers. That's right. Islam is not a religion, but a death cult. It's an ideology for fanatics. There is no such thing as a moderate Muslim. All that is only an eyewash.
Don't pretend that the cloak of Islam and Islamic belief and religious fervor means that people like us cannot say that people who call for the murder of minorities are not mainstream, are not acceptable, and have to be critiqued.
That was a very lovely video, guys. That was an awesome video, a very lovely one from Douglas. And guys, if you know you really enjoyed that video, do also smash a like button, join the family, join AB React by clicking on your subscribe button and then on your notification bell so you don't miss out whenever I upload a video. If you have recommendations, suggestions, guys, always do well to leave it right there in the comment section. Alright, every screen, I can't wait to see you in my next video. Stay safe, stay blessed, and don't bye guys.